Hello everybody, welcome back to Of Course Words and Pages. My name is Natalie and welcome to my November wrap-up. So November was a fine reading month for me. I read I think 9 books in total, and for the most part they were pretty good, but I did have some not so great ones. So my first read of the month was Carnival by Stephanie Garber, which was a reread for me. This is the 3rd time I've read this book and it is just as good as the first 2. I'm currently in the process of rereading the series so I can read Once Upon a Broken Heart, which came out earlier this year, and I finally actually managed to get it start in my reread. So in Carnival, we're following 2 sisters, Tessa and Scarlett, who live under a very controlling father. Now, every year for the past, I don't even know how many years, Scarlett has written to Carnival Master Legend, who runs Carnival, which is this huge magic competition, and she's like, hey, can you come to our land? Like, my father's like a bad person, and you know, having you here would be nice to like experience Carnival because I can't leave. And every year she does not receive a reply. This year Scarlett writes for the last time. She's like, hey, I'm getting married, because her father has arranged a marriage for her. She's kind of had some works in it too, and she's about to get married, and she's like, this is the last chance I'll ever have to get to Carnival. And this time she gets a response and he's like, here's some tickets. I'm not coming to you, but you can come to me. And so Tella, Scarlett, and a mysterious sailor who helps them sneak away go to Carnival. But once they get there, Tella is kidnapped, and it turns out that the object of this year's game is to find Tella. And of course, because it's Carnival, everything that happens is not real, it's only a game. But Scarlett starts to get wrapped up in everything that's happening in Carnival as she tries to find her sister. And I absolutely love this book. So first off, the writing in it is just so whimsical and lyrical. The characters are amazingly well developed. The sisterly bond between Tessa and Scarlett is just so real, and how much they love each other and want to protect each other. As someone who has a sister, I relate to that so much. I really liked Julian, who is a character in it. I'm not going to say too much more. And I just thought all the people in the book with Carnival and everything were really interesting, and I absolutely adore this book. I don't really rate books, but it's like a 4.5. The second book I read was These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, and this is the fairly exclusive edition, and I also really enjoyed this book. In this book, we follow Bree, who absolutely hates the Fae, but her sister is kidnapped by the Unseelie King, and in order to get her back, Bree has to take 3 magical items from the Seelie court and give them to the king. And so Bree has to disguise herself as a potential bride for the Seelie prince, Ronan. And the closer she gets to Ronan, the more she gets to know him and feels like, hey, he's not actually this bad guy that I thought all Fae were. But Bree is also getting close to Finn, who is leading this group of rebels that's kind of helping her with her quest. And it's the story of her trying to get these artifacts, and also the love triangle between it. So I was actually surprised how much I liked this book, given that it did have a love triangle in it. And like, I'll be honest, the love triangle was not my favorite. I still don't love love triangles, but I felt like both the love interests were well developed, and there were like pros and cons for each of them, which I thought was good. They were like pretty equal footing. So the beginning part of this book, while like I was interested in it, it's not great. It's kind of boring. It feels like the book doesn't know what it wants to do. But the farther you get into this book, the more you kind of learn about everything about the history of the world. As you get more world building, it becomes super fast. And the ending of this book was absolutely explosive. I don't think this book's strong points are its characters, but I do hope we get more development of them in the next book. I'm especially interested to see where the Finn and Ronan go after the way this book ended. Like, okay, that was something. So I really did enjoy this book. I'm super excited for the sequel. So the next book I read was Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson, but I'm also going to talk about The Bands of Mourning because I read both of those books these months. So these books are part of Mistborn Era 2. These are books 2 and 3 in Mistborn Era 2, Wax and Wane, whatever you want to call it. And basically the non-spoiler summary is following Wax, who is a lawman kind of guy. Not really. He used to be out in the roughs working as like a lawman, getting bandits and stuff like that, but now he has moved back into the city to take his place as like a nobleman or whatever. And we're basically following him as he gets caught up in this scheme and has to like figure it out. And we're following him and Wayne, who is his partner from when he was out in the roughs, and then also mainly Steris and Marseille, who are 2 people he becomes entwined with, like politically and stuff. So I really like these books. After the first book in this series, I wasn't completely sold on it. I liked it, as I'm pretty sure I will like almost every Brandon Sanderson book I read in the Cosmere. He's an amazing writer, but I wasn't as sold on this one as I was Mistborn Era 1, and I'm still not. But the way that these two books exploded, ripped open the world, and started connecting a lot to stuff that was learned in Era 1 and spinning it and putting more twists onto it were absolutely amazing. Character development and growth, and basically the development we see in these characters, the more we get to learn about them, is amazing, especially in Dance of Mourning. I love the development that we saw with both Steris and Marseille. Steris, it was nice to see her finally get some personality and self-realization, and then the journey that Marseille has been on through these 3 books is really, really amazing. And it's just fascinating to see how her character grows and changes. The ending of Dance and Mourning and kind of the stuff that we found out there with some of the people that we met and how that kind of impacted by the end of Era 1 was really interesting. And sadly, the next book in this series is not yet out. It's coming out next year, so I'm really excited for this. And then I read what is one of my least favorite books of the year so far, so that's great, and that's Bad Cruise by LJ Shen. So I've read some other LJ Shen books, and they're not great, and I know she's not a very nice person, but they're kind of like guilty pleasures for me. They're just nice and easy to read, for the most part. And mostly they're fun. Not this one. So I don't even know how to explain this book. So we're following Tennessee, or as she's called in her hometown, Messy Nessie, and kind of implied by her name, she's had a bit of a messy life. She had to drop out of high school, I think, because she got pregnant by her high school boyfriend, who then left her. Yikes. And so at the beginning of the story, she's working at a diner, and her life is not great, but she has her son, whom she loves. And her sister is engaged to the brother of Cruz. Now, Cruz is the town golden boy. He's taken over his father's position of the town doctor, and he's like the good boy. And so at the beginning of the story, so her sister is marrying his brother, and so their families are going to be intertwining. And basically what's happening is, so every summer, Cruz's family goes on a cruise, and this year, Nellie's family is going as well. And so somehow Nellie has gotten in charge of booking the tickets for her and Cruz for the cruise. There's a pun with the name Bad Cruise. His name is Cruz. The cruise goes bad. Now, accidentally, Nellie not only books one room only for the 2 of them, she also books them on the wrong cruise. So it's the story of kind of them getting to know each other on the cruise. It was bad. So this book had a lot of different elements. It went all over the place. Like, the cruise is only like 40% of the book, I think, or something like that. And then we're back in the hometown stuff. And the thing I disliked the most about this book was the way Nessie's family treated her, and the way she let them treat her like that, even after it seemed like she'd come to some realizations. Like, they were so judgmental of her, they talked down to her so much, and they used her, and she's just like, okay, fine, whatever. And it's weird because Cruz does try to call it out in some ways, but then he forces these even bigger ultimatums on her, like, hey, your family's bad, so do this, and or else we can't be together. And also Cruz, it was I didn't like him because he went from being you're so embarrassing, I can't be seen with you, to oh my god, I love you, please, we belong together. This book gave me whiplash, I think. It was just not enjoyable. I did not like the romance between the 2 of them because I didn't like the 2 characters, and I really didn't like the way Cruz treated Nessie a lot of the times. There was one interesting part where the father of Nessie's child kind of comes back into their life and is like, hey, I want a second chance. That doesn't last for too long, and then it's kind of funny seeing her son's reaction to it, and he's like, nah, I hate you, you're terrible to my mother. So that was probably the only good part of this book. Then I read One Piece volumes 4 and 5. I'm really enjoying the series. We're getting more into it. I mean, I'm barely into the series, but I'm getting a lot more interested in it and excited to continue with it. I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on this, but I'm excited to read more. Then I read a very popular romance which did not disappoint, and that is The Love Hypothesis. So in this book, Olive is a PhD student who, in an attempt to convince her friend that she is not in love with this boy and that her friend can feel free to date him, she kisses Adam Carlson, who is a professor at her school, which sounds bad, but he's not in charge of her PhD or anything. And then this leads to a whole string of fake dating things, and it's a great book. Obviously, there's some questions as to why is he doing this. He doesn't know me. So Adam kind of has this, I don't want to say reputation, because it's not necessarily a reputation, it's just true. He's not necessarily a nice person to his PhD students. He's very rough with them, does not sugarcoat things, and gives them a lot of harsh criticism. And so Olive's kind of like, okay, why is he agreeing to fake date me then? But then he's like so nice to her. And that was something that I really liked about this book, and I've seen people talking about like it's really nice to see this, because like this book is like, it's like the grumpy and sunshine trope. People are usually like, grumpy person is like usually also horrible to like their love interest, but in this book it was not the case, and he kind of justifies it, and I say justifies with air quotations because I'm not quite sure if it's justified about how harsh he was, but he's like, it's just to help them become better students. He's like not actually a mean person outside of academic settings. And I think there is some, I want to say fairness to that. Like I think there is a bar of like how harsh you should be, and I think to some levels he does cross it. And I did like it because Olive did call him out on it in some points, and he was like, okay, maybe I am being a bit harsh. But I do think obviously in a PhD program you can't sugarcoat everything, because he's like, I don't want them to be wasting research funds, which like true, but still he was a bit harsh. So just the romance between the two of them was like, because like also like 50% of the way through the book Olive realizes that like she likes him actually, and it's just like her trying to hide it, and it's so good. And also like maybe he likes her too. It was great. Everyone's been reading this book and loving it, and I am no exception. And then we go to the final book I read this month, which was The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This book was intimidating me. We had a battle, and I'm not quite sure who won. Yes, I finished the book, but did the book finish me? How to describe The Eye of the World? So basically, we open in this small little farm town village, Emmonsfield, and we're mainly following Rand, who is a farmer. He's a shepherd or something like that. And he has these two good friends, Matt and Perrin. They were all born around the same days, and they're all good buddies. And then their farm village is attacked by these monsters, and they have to leave. So there's this woman in town called Moraine, who is an Aes Sedai, who is like this witch. She can basically channel magic powers. And she's like, hey, one of you guys is the dragon, and the dragon is like this mythical being in their history of the world. And basically the premise of this book is like the wheel of time keeps turning and like keeps repeating itself. And so like the dragon came before and was like really powerful, but like ruined a lot of people, and she's like, one of you guys is the dragon reborn, and so these monster things are hunting you because the Dark One wants to kill you, because he doesn't want you to do any good. Even though the dragon did good and bad, he doesn't want you to even have a chance to do anything good, so he's trying to kill you. So we need to go figure out which one of you is the dragon, because I don't know, the Dark One doesn't know, but like it's pretty obvious that Rand is the dragon. Just putting that out there. And so it's following their journey, and she has this guard person with her, Lan, and then also two girls from the village follow them. And it is their quest as they try to travel places. And this book is a lot of traveling. That's, I think, my main criticism of this book and why I struggle to get through it. It's so much walking and traveling and slowness. And I do know that resolves itself in the later books. Like after the first two books and like part of the next book, like they stop like traveling so much, or like they do travel, they just don't spend so much time on the journey. And like I get why they were doing all of the traveling, like it makes sense logically. It was just a bit boring. And also at one point the characters all get split off into like different side quests, and just like some of them weren't the most interesting, but like I made it through, and I'm definitely gonna continue this book, because while this maybe wasn't my favorite book ever, I'm really intrigued by the history of this world, and like the whole concept of the wheel of time constantly turning, of ages coming anew and like restarting itself. And I'm really interested by this. Just we got a lot of information, but also not a lot of information in this first book, and so it'll be interesting to see how that develops, and we learn more about the past as it comes to fruition in the present. So I did enjoy this book in the end, I think, and I'm excited to continue on in December. So those were the, I think, 9 books I read this month. I would say overall I had a pretty good reading month. I mean, probably the only book that wasn't great was Bad Cruise, but like that book was really bad. So yeah, I think while I didn't read as many books this month as I previously had hoped to, as I was previously reading, I did have good quality of books, so that's always a plus. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Down below will be links to all the books I talked about, as well as my Goodreads and my bookstore if you want to follow me there. Subscribe to see more content from me, and I will see you all again in my next video. Bye!